show their heart full of blues out in the dirt. Down in the dirt. I've been a real bad boy on the town all night. Starting to calm down with the morning light. I'm in the dirt, down in the dirt. Been real bad. I've been a real bad boy on the town all night. Starting to calm down with the morning light. I'm in the dirt, down in the dirt, down in the dirt.
So this tree is actually pretty exciting. It's a tree that I bought specifically for Shauna. We have a couple of them that we just planted. It's a Colorado Blue Spruce, one of the prettiest evergreens that there is. And Shauna is from Colorado, so she grew up seeing these as well as aspens. And if you stay tuned on our channel, we've actually ordered some aspens for our property as well. A lot of people are probably wondering how well a Colorado Blue Spruce would do in our area. So I wanted to explain just briefly the differences of growing zones. Just because you're in a specific growing zone does not mean that you can grow everything in that growing zone, or you're limited to everything in that growing zone. We are currently in a growing zone called 7B. Before that, we were 7A. And if you trace back over time, the growing zones specifically across North Carolina kind of look like a mitten coming down, with the Piedmont in here, the Triassic Basin, the mountains, and then out towards the coast. I've kind of probably got that backwards. Coast out here, mountains, Triassic Basin, Piedmont. We are actually on the Triassic Basin, which traditionally had been a cooler growing zone, and wasn't until like 2014 that I think it became 7B. And I believe that we're kind of, at this point in time, we're in a cooling period, so we're going backwards. If I can establish this Colorado Blue Spruce and help it adapt to this environment, it's going to grow very well. So a lot of what I'm doing here is helping the plant along for its first couple years to help it establish itself, and then it's probably going to do perfectly fine. It can withstand a little bit of drought. Of course, we don't really have a whole lot of drought problems in North Carolina, and that's a nice thing about it too. Where I've planted this tree, it's going to get at least 4 hours of sunlight each day, but maybe not any more than that. Being in the south, in a warmer environment, that's better for it. It's going to get plenty of moisture. That's important. If you're growing down south, you need to make sure that these have access to plenty of moisture. If they go through a hot drought period, that could dry them up and kill them. So the other thing that I've been doing with this tree is when I planted it, I dug a hole, a very large hole. Normally they say to go twice the size of the pot that they're in. I like to go at least 3 times the size, and then I like to go a lot deeper and then create my own kind of fill dirt to go back in the hole, something that's a little better for the plant, so that as the plant initially grows into the space, it has the ideal growing conditions, and then it'll slowly adapt to the soil around it. I planted this with some topsoil. I also went back, put a weed barrier down around the plant, and then mulched it in with some thick mulch. I did that because I want to retain as much moisture down there for the roots as possible. And this guy has actually started to grow since it's been in the ground. It's November here, and so that it's not completely dormant yet, and it seems to be thriving and doing very well the way that I've planted this here. But again, these Colorado Blue Spruces, they will grow in our area if you can adapt them. And my biggest challenge will be during the summertime. So planting this in November gives me all of fall and winter and early spring to really help it root in and establish itself. It's going to take it probably 2 to 3 years before I'm going to feel comfortable walking away and not doing things to kind of help it along. But I'm excited about this tree. You can get them at your local nurseries. I would suggest buying a blue spruce locally if you're going to, because they've probably been somewhat adapted to the environment already by the nurseries and growers. It's kind of like following a genetic code down the line. These are probably they're coming from a lineage that has been grown in the area, so they're a little more heat tolerant than ordering a Colorado blue spruce from Colorado and then trying to plant it in your yard. I wouldn't do that. So this one was purchased locally from a local grower, and it should do very well. The other thing that we have done here is we've put around a cage around this tree, and that is to keep any animals off of it, dogs from peeing on it, anything that could hurt this plant. We want it to establish itself. We don't want anything to be able to damage it in that process. So we put up a gate around it just to help protect it in those early fragile years. But eventually this will be able to come off. These are pretty quick growers, so I'm hoping that we'll start feeling a little more comfortable with it after about 1.5 years, and then we can remove this and not have to worry about it. And this tree right here is a Dwarf Alberta Spruce. If you're going to plant a tree close to a house or in a garden, you want something that's kind of a spruce-like tree, but you don't want it to get huge, because the blue spruces, they get huge. This is a great tree. It's a great alternative. Again, it's not normally grown in our growing zone, so basically everything that I'm doing with the Colorado Blue Spruce, I'm doing with this tree. Now, this tree will only get to be about 15 feet high and 3 to 4 feet wide. So we wanted something that was kind of close to the house, but we didn't want something that would invade and take over the space over a long period of time. So this is a great tree for this location. It's going to remain small though for a much longer period of time than our Colorado Blue Spruce, but even when it is full grown, it's not going to be taking over the area that it's in, and it's a very nice ornamental tree. So this is another great spruce alternative. We are big fans of spruces, so anything that I can find that I can grow in this environment, I am going to try and do. We have a lot of cedars and cypresses, but the spruces are really the pretty trees. We use the cedars and cypresses and white pines and things like that as roadblocks, but then on the inside of that, the things that we see out our windows, we're looking for a lot of spruces. The Norway Spruce is another spruce that I am looking into bringing out here on our property. For the Canadian, or the Alberta, the Dwarf Alberta, I basically dug a hole that was much larger than the pot size. Again, I dug it really deep. I put in a topsoil, mixed it in with some of the other natural soils, and then put down a weed barrier and mulched it in real thick and heavy. And this is a nice damp area, so this tree should thrive here, because again, when you're growing a tree from up north, it's good to make sure that you're putting them in well-drained but yet damp, moist soils. So, and well-drained soils, what that means is if you fill the hole that you dug with water, you're looking at how fast it drains out of that hole. These types of spruces prefer a more acidic soil, but they'll grow in clay. They'll grow, a lot of trees you'll find will grow in a lot of different soils as long as you can maintain other environmental needs of theirs. I'm pretty excited about this tree and our blue spruce, but we'll see how they do over the next couple years.